Hi, Professor Reed. So I watched and listened to episode 446 of Teach Me to Talk, Ethics for the SLP, reviewing ASHA's Code of Ethics. Um, I actually really enjoyed this podcast because it really broke down each of the ASHA's Code of Ethics and provide like real world examples of specific um, issues one might deal with, and I thought that was super like relatable in terms of what we've been discussing in class. Um, and with that, what I really enjoyed was she really hit on the when we were talking in class about how if you whether or not you can or can't accept like certain gifts or not. So she talks about how that the principle of ethics 3b, that individuals shall avoid engaging in conflicts of interest whereby a personal, professional, financial, or other interest or relationship could influence their objectivity, competence, or effectiveness in performing professional responsibilities. If such conflicts of interest cannot be avoided, proper disclosure and management is required. So that's a little bit, I think, on the more extreme case as to what you can and cannot accept. But it definitely shows that like how providing services to family members or supervising students during evaluations can be impaired with very little, and that we have to be objective in how we approach situations like that so that ourselves as clinicians aren't swayed to go one way or the other, and that we have to hold and stand by what we believe, not what a parent wants, not what your boss or employer is telling you to do, because if it doesn't follow within this code of ethics, we could potentially lose our license. It's not benefiting the student in any sort of way. So with that, she also talked about documentation and confidentiality. So she highlighted the importance of like accurate records, which is huge because it allows us to look back if something were to happen. We have to be able to go back and say, well, no, but on this day we actually did X, Y, and Z, or this is why we can't do something based on this information. So having that data is key, because we're not going to remember if you're seeing 15 kids a day. It's too much to remember. So being able to have clear documentation is going to allow us to pick up where we left off, as well as refer back to if necessary. So she also hit on CEUs, which is great because we all have to have them, whether you're SLPA or SLP. It's staying current in our field, which is considered a best practice. And so it falls under the professional competence of the ASHA Code of Records, and that it just so shows how ethical standards can guide daily clinical decisions, which are key to making sure that our clients are receiving their best care as possible. So the relevance to my future as an SLP, it shows that like there was a decision-making framework where you learning to apply the principles helps ensures like our consistency and ethical outcomes, because there can be a gray line or a fine line, as it's not always black and white. So understanding fully the code of ethics allows us to expand upon what we already know, but giving our client the best treatment as possible. Also avoiding biases. It's going to help us grow professionally, especially in a school or early intervention settings where overlapping rules are super common, and that we can't necessarily avoid bias, but we can do our best to do so, and that it's key that we note that there are going to be situations where our opinion might reflect differently than somebody we're working with, and we're just going to have to focus on the speech and what we are doing during that session versus anything outside of that therapy treatment room. So what really stood out for me for this video was that she did a clear breakdown of dilemmas and how we each align specifically to ASHA's code of ethics. And so it made it feel more real, I guess you could say, in terms of so you can read it and you're like, okay, I get that, but how she broke it down really opened my eyes to different scenarios that I might come across, and that the code of ethics are there not to deter us from doing things, but it's just to make sure that everybody's on the same page and our clients are all receiving the best care as possible. And so overall, like, knowing ASHA's code of ethics isn't an option, it's essential, is kind of what she says. At one point she breaks down that every year we have to sign a little contract stating that we've read them. But yes, you can fly through it, but do you understand them? So I loved how she broke everything down, and that it lays the foundation for what we can and should not do as therapists, especially too when we're co-treating, which was an interesting discussion point she brought up as well. So it did sharpen my awareness of different ethical issues and gave me confidence to resolve them in a way that I might not have thought about before. So overall, loved the video. Thanks so much. I hope you have a great day.